4 evenings and 10 hours will get you a mighty fine looking winch bumper. Welcome to Nightclub, guys. It's your host, the Night Wrencher. I went ahead and bought this Badland winch, the Harbor Freight special, like pretty much my favorite go-to place to go get tools. This thing came out to about $285, including tax, which is a heck of a deal. The reason for that is I was able to get the winch, which is already on sale for $389. And then the lady there, she was super awesome, super nice, and she found me a coupon to bring this down to $299. And then I applied and got approved for the Harbor Freight credit card, which took 10% off. And with tax, I went ahead and I paid a little less than $290 for a 12,000 pound winch, which ended up cheaper than any other comparable winch on Amazon and eBay. Well, maybe not eBay, but Amazon and anything on Harbor Freight. I wanted to go through and get the Apex model, but they actually didn't even have that one in stock, and they weren't going to get it. I guess they're not getting anything in shipment right now, which is fine. 12,000 is 12,000, so I don't really care too much. So let's go ahead and open this box and see what's inside. All right, so I was able to take the box off. It wasn't such a big deal. So you've got this strap right here, which I'm assuming is to hook on to your hook when you're not using it. According to the instructions, it was actually supposed to say Badland. I guess they ran out of money and we will not be having that. It didn't come with the winch plate, which I actually had to buy separate. This thing was 50 bucks, I believe, also at Harbor Freight, so I just picked them up at the same time. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this apart and try to install this on my truck. Pretty much the key component of this whole operation is the winch plate for my bumper. Originally the winch was actually going to sit sideways and it was going to be fed from the top. After investigating and figuring out how other people were mounting theirs, it became obvious that I had to install the winch, you know, the standard horizontal way, and just find a way to install the winch mount. So the one that comes in Harbor Freight is a really nice universal unit. It's fairly wide, so it fits in a bunch of different types of applications, and it comes with a lot of extra holes to mount onto different kinds of surfaces, and it also provides holes for you to be able to run cabling through the plate itself, and it's fairly easy to install. I just had to remove a bunch of material because it was just too big for my particular application. After I did a little bit of trimming, it seemed to be fitting pretty good, and I just had to find a way to support it. Alright, so I'm trying to figure out how I'm actually going to mount this winch. I've got it hooked on right now with a single carriage bolt right there, and I've got the winch just kind of floating here right now. If I go ahead and move this whole thing's going to move. Basically what I'm trying to do right now, I'm trying to get a good feel of how it's going to look, and if I actually want to lower it to the lower 2-inch tube, or if I want to keep it right there on the higher 2-inch tube. On the previous video that I posted when I was actually building this front bumper, or at least starting to, you guys should know that we have one 2-inch tube here, pretty thick wall, and then in the middle section there's a second 2-inch tube. So I can actually drop it a little bit lower, but I seem to like it where it's at right now. So I'm going to go ahead and drill out the other 2 carriage bolts, and then I'm going to build the supports. I ended up using a ton of carriage bolts versus using grade A bolts. I don't actually know what, you know, the tension is when using carriage bolts. I do know that grade A bolts are pretty much top of the line, and tons of people use it for their applications, but I wanted something to sit a little bit more flush, a little bit, you know, inconspicuous, and carriage bolts seem to be able to do the job just fine. We are going to find out how well they hold up when pulling on a winch, aside from the fact that we've got 3 bolts holding it from the back, and we've got 2 bolts holding it from the bottom. With 5 bolts, I'm assuming it's going to have enough tension on the plate so we don't have any kind of splitting or breaking off the carriage bolts. I was actually surprised by how well all the Harbor Freight stuff seemed to fit. I'm so used to things coming out from China all crooked and cockeyed and things not lining up, but For the most part, everything was a simple 1, 2, 3 application. The hardware that it came with it didn't split up when I was trying to tighten it up, and it held together, and I was able to do a couple of test pulls with it, no problem, as soon as I had it all together. But as soon as I had all the wiring and everything was all set up, I was able to start trimming down the main part of the bumper. I figured where the length of the wheels were going to be traveling through and what my approach angle is going to be. I don't ever plan to do any kind of serious wheeling with this truck. It's really more for, you know, riding around and a little bit of show, a little bit of go, but not really. Using cardboard as a template, it's super popular, and it's very excellent and helpful. It's got a lot of rigidity when it comes to forming things and taking the place of sheet metal. Because of the way it's set up, you can go ahead and line it up with your marker, fold it, and it should be fairly close to what your sheet metal is going to look like. I didn't make any measurements. I just kind of went with it and decided to fold it all up and transfer everything that I was able to gather from the cardboard onto a sheet of metal, and I was able to reproduce that for both sides, and I really like the way the corners turned out. For the bottom section, I'm going to call that the skirt or air dam or whatever, front splitter, I don't know. The skirt for it is actually an important piece because it gives the bumper depth. That's part of the reason why it has kind of like a, you know, 45-degree turn on top as well, because I want the bumper to look thick, but I didn't want the truck to have like a big old, you know, chin hanging out the bottom of the truck. I didn't want anything too obnoxious, too out of the way. I wanted it very tight, very compact, very clean, and basically that's what this whole truck is planning to be. It's a very clean, very easy to look at. Nothing too extreme except for maybe the color. Everything else is going to just blend right in with any kind of standard off-road build, I think. Okay, so I've pretty much got this plate ready to go. Like I told you before, I did weld the inside. It's not too pretty. And I also didn't use any kind of spatter spray, so if you had used spatter spray, all of this would have just wiped off. But the welds aren't too bad. It does look a little ugly, but I'm not really too concerned about it. It is a flux core welder. We're not expecting anything fancy, which is why we're doing it this way. Because us beginners, let's face it, we don't have money for fancy tools. So if we look at the other side right here, you can tell that it's pretty seamless, if that makes sense. You can still see, obviously, the line between the two metals, but there's no holes. The only holes that ended up are because I went too fast or I was welding for too long and I punched a hole through the thin edge. Those are easily fixed on the opposite side if you want to, when you do the flap wheel, or if you don't want to, just, you know, bed liner or whatever, and it should hide it. I've already got the hole for the rivets here. I've got 2 here and 1 over here. The 2 on the edges, just like on the other one, they're going to hold this in place, and then I'm going to go ahead and install the 2 in the middle. So then I've also welded 4 spot welds on the inside of the bend. I didn't do any on this side because I don't know how the bend is going to go yet, so that's exactly why I didn't cut it here, and why I did cut it there, so you can tell that the corner where the bend's already set up and good to go, and this side is not, because I'm still missing the other piece. This last piece, this last corner piece right here that's uncut, is going to be the last piece that I cut, because I do need to set up the piece that goes along there first. And before I can do that, I have to do this. So you can see that I've got good penetration on the opposite side. And right now I'm going to go ahead and install it, and then I'm going to grab a piece of sheet metal so we can start doing the piece in the middle. That one's going to be pretty tricky, and I'm going to show you guys why. Okay, so I've got this riveted on right here. I know it looks a little overkill, but after this thing is painted with the bed liner, you guys won't even notice these. And if they're too noticeable, I could always just grind them down flush and then paint over that, and then maybe weld it from the back, which I'm going to do anyway to get all the seams, but you know, options are options. So like I said, we've got this tricky part here, and the reason it's tricky is because we're dealing with 4 angles, well 5 really. You've got this angle that goes straight down here, and you've got this angle that goes away from this at not even a 45, it's like a 15 degrees, let's say. And then we've got this one that's over here, so we've got an entire 0 degrees basically straight, and then we've got the same 15 degrees coming out this way. And for the 5th angle, we've actually got them offset, so this is higher than that. So the way we accomplish this is we're actually going to take this piece of sheet metal, which is already bent to the appropriate angle. As you guys can see, I've already, it took a little bit of effort to get this to the right angle. I had to bend it and step on it a couple times to get it to the right shape. But I've got the measurements right, and I've got this good to go. So this is actually an oversized piece, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to overlay it. We're going to find the 2 closest angles. So we're doing the bottom, and you can see that it's overhanging, and then we're going to do the top, and it's going to overhang. So we're going to go ahead, I'm going to go ahead and mark that connecting point right there, and then as soon as I have my other hand free, I'm going to mark the other point up there, and then the point on the bottom, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut them straight across here and then fit them. I did mess up over here in the fact that I ended up cutting this piece a little too short, so I'm about a 1/4 inch short off of this. So what I ended up doing, you can see the original cut line that's right here, and I ended up making a second cut line to go around this corner, but now I'm about a 1/4 inch short, and I'm also crooked. So what I'm going to do is, after I got the bottom set up, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit to this one so I can go around the bend, and then I'll be able to tack weld it here instead of tack welding it up here in the corner. So we're going to go ahead and weld it here and then over there, so that way after it's all said and done, you guys won't even notice what's going on. And then also this last flap, like I said before, this will get pressed in to wherever the middle section is between this and that one, which isn't too difficult after everything else is all said and done. So I'm going to go ahead and fit this, and then I'll be right back. Alright, so we ran into a little bit of an issue here. On one side it fits pretty good, pretty much solid. The angle is, you know, pretty much spot on. One thing you do have to remember is, because this is at an angle, the actual piece of metal is now longer, because the cut travels through more pieces of metal, versus this one that's straight up and down. This will have the shortest path. This one, even though it's the same, you know, bend, because the cut's at an angle, the actual angle is going to be longer. So if we put this up here, corner to corner, you're going to see that about a 1/16 of an inch is going to be higher on this side, which isn't a big deal. We'll go ahead and we'll trim it as needed. That's not the biggest, you know, concern in the world. The problem is actually over here. So just like I made it too short before, I went ahead and I did it again. I also made it too short on this side. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and put it together, and when I take this apart to weld up everything on the back side, I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of a Mickey Mouse magic on this corner, and I'll just keep in mind when I do the other side to add a little bit of extra material. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to do some Mickey Mouse magic, okay? Okay, so I've put the 2 rivets on the ends. I'm going to go ahead and put 2 more rivets right here in the middle just to keep it from moving. I'm going to go ahead and end these 2 right here and tack weld them on the outside. I'm going to do about 1, 2, 3, and then another 2 right here just to get this nice and flush. I'm going to need to do a little bit of fitting, but it's not a big deal. This is what concerns me the most. It looks like I have enough room here to play with both sides of the sheet metal to get a nice triangle out of this. So what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm probably going to make a point right here at the very bottom, and maybe just cut from here to here, here to here, and then start trimming on the either end to get this to fit, because it will have to fit one way or another. It will have to fit in here. And then as you can see right here, I was able to hit with a hammer around this corner, and then that'll allow me to weld here. I'll be able to trim this edge right here straight. That's not going to be a big deal. This I'm going to be able to weld and then finish up with the flap wheel. And then I've got a nice little gap here, which I'm probably just going to stick a piece of metal and then just weld through and then just finish the ends. Probably going to have to fill here and here, and I think that's going to be the only areas that I'm going to have to fill, and that's completely my fault because I messed up in the way I needed to cut this. So that's something else. But overall, finish is looking pretty good. I know the 2-inch pipe travels through around here, and then we've got the sheet metal here, so I'm hoping I've got enough room somewhere right here to put the light. So that's why all the sheet metal has to be done first before I do any of the accessories. So here's to hoping. And let's not forget I still have to do the other side, but you guys won't have to deal with that. Alright, so this is where we're at right now. I went ahead and I connected the straight piece right here to this. You can tell that we have a gap right here that we're going to need to fill. That's not going to be a problem. We're going to go ahead and remove this to backfill with all the welds. We don't have to do a lot of trimming on the front side. And on this side, it actually came out pretty tight. After I finished welding up the back side, like I said again, we're going to go ahead and fix that up. I'm noticing that this might be a little too long, which is actually great, because what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to measure out from the seam down. We've got 4 inches right now, so I'm going to go ahead and count 3.5 inches, and then we're going to cut a 1/2 inch through the entire skirt on the bottom, and then that's actually going to give us a nice clean transition, a nice clean cut all the way around, and I'm not going to have to worry about the ends melting or rubbing away when I go ahead and do all the welds. Basically everything I just showed you guys had to be done a second time because of just the nature of the way symmetry works, you know, and I had to go ahead and make sure everything was as square as I could and even on both sides, after which I gave everything a nice coat of flat black paint just so I can get a general idea of what everything looked like. I also went ahead and trimmed my fenders while I was at it toward the bottom because of the way the rake was. I was getting a lot of interference in the front of my fenders, so I went ahead and trimmed about 1/2 inch. Later I'm going to have a video of me modifying another set of fenders so I can get the wheel gap that I need for if I ever decide to go off-roading. I guess the truck will look pretty capable. In the meantime, the winch is pretty much all good to go. Just little bits and pieces here and there, but I think it's turning out pretty good. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Very curious to know what you guys like to do with your rigs. Alright, so it's been a few days since I finished up this bumper. The other side went pretty much the same, actually probably worse than this side. If you guys go ahead and take a look here, we still have the gaps that I need to fill. We have this section right here. Well, actually it doesn't look as bad as I thought it did. I mean, it's been a couple days since I finished it up, so we have this. Go away. And then we have this section right here, also welded up. This one I actually messed up twice, and I had to cut it, re-weld it, and then cut it again. One thing I also didn't show is that the plate that I got for Harbor Freight for the winch, also I ended up trimming it out, and I ended up cutting a 45 out of this and a 45 on the other side. And I did end up, because it used to come out to over here, I trimmed it all the way to down here so it fits right here. This is fully operational now. I'll have a video of it working later on. And right now it just has a quick coat of bed liner, and for the most part it's pretty much good to go. So that pretty much finishes up my 2-part bumper build. This was a really long video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a ton of work, probably 4 nights. I would leave work and then finish it up in the evening. So that pretty much covers everything. I will see you guys all in the next one. Night Wrencher out.